Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly discussion series that's hosted by the Chaldean Cultural Center in collaboration with U of M Detroit Center, Unique Voices in Films, and CMN TV. Our guest today is Reverend Kenneth Bunge, and he is working on an interesting project. He's the advisor to the Chaldean translation program, which I only recently learned about, but I guess it's been going on for a while. And Reverend Kenneth was born in Monroe, Michigan, and grew up there, graduating from Monroe High School in 1974. Later, he began attending Concordia College in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he majored in music, interestingly. And then later on, he also majored in biblical Hebrew studies in 1979. In the fall of that year, he spent 2 quarters at Concordia Seminary, St. Louis, and he switched gears and enlisted in the Air Force, serving as an Arabic and Hebrew linguist for 20 years. And this is why he showed me a shirt earlier. First of all, welcome, Reverend Kenneth. We're very happy to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And I think you have a shirt there that represents all the languages that you speak. And
would you like me to show it?
Yes, I would.
What this is the organization that I was working full-time with was Lutheran Bible Translators. And so this shirt is a way of people looking at it and then contributing. It has a hashtag on it. So, and I'll just do it. I think I'll just hold it up. And the print is small, but it has Arabic, and then it's all the English in the middle, of course, but on top is Arabic, and then on the bottom is Surah, but it's an Arabic script.
Oh, and you know what? I can see it much better now because I have the larger screen, and it says "Hut kalam Allah ben Edain, Giving Tuesday," and can you read the bottom? The bottom part, so you have the Arabic, the English, and then the bottom part is in the Aramaic language, but it's written with Arabic characters.
Yeah, so Duri Tanathat Maria, what's Billy Dathe. Forgot what it said. I wasn't looking at it, so.
Yeah, that is very beautiful. And is this part of, are these shirts part of the project? Because I know the translation is, the Bible was translated in Arabic and now it's in Chaldean. And are there different languages that it's being translated into?
Well, the shirt is not part of the project. That's just because each American translator, to be reimbursed for our effort, we have to be part of a translation organization in some way. So this is one way for that organization, Lutheran Bible Translators, to make it aware to people that this is what we're doing. We're putting the words of the Lord into the hands of the people, which is our goal as a Bible translation organization. So, and as well as it apparently, because it has a hashtag on it, apparently it has a way of people to helping with the project by contributing.
And so tell us a little bit, what is the Chaldean translation program, and how did you get involved in it? Since you're non-Chaldean, especially, I think.
Well, I am the supervisor. Of course, I'm working with a translator. There have been other translators in the past who helped translate the New Testament. And I'm the second advisor on this project. The first one was Jim Kaiser, who was also from Michigan. And he helped with part of that project anyways. And then he had other things. He moved up the ladder, you might say, to supervise more projects in the translation fields over in Africa. And I was looking for a project to help with the translation, but to stay in the United States and not go overseas. And I told him what my experiences were. And I said, well, that fits us very well. to be able to understand the Arabic writing system, and because the translator does not work well the computer. So we have software that we help us to keep track of the translation, and I use Skype, and I do a show screen, and he tells me what to write, and I type it in with an Arabic script.
So this sounds like it's, when did this project start? Because it sounds like it would be a very, it sounds like very consuming and elaborate project. And you're saying that the New Testament has already been translated. Is that correct? Is it like completely done? And then you're just
Yes.
working on the Old Testament?
The New Testament is finished, and it's available for purchase.
Where can people purchase that?
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen that. I should know that at the top of my head.
If you send us the information,
Yes.
we will include it when we with the recording of this video.
Yes, I just found it the other day, and I didn't put it in my notes. That's my.
Okay, so that part is done, and then right now, where are you guys at with the Old Testament? How far are you?
We are working. Well, we have done some books that were they were near and dear to the heart of the Chaldean community. We did Esther, we did Nehemiah, and we did we did First Samuel, mainly because that's an easier book to translate, because it's not poetry. The grammar and the language is easier. So we did that kind of just to get our feet wet, for me to work with a translator. Mm-hmm. And then we started working through Genesis, and we're about chapter 36 of Exodus. I believe that project started in about 96 or 2006, thereabouts.
And when it started, how was it initiated? Because like the fact that it incorporated the Chaldean. So was there a community that initiated it here in Michigan, since Michigan has such a large population of Chaldeans?
Well, it was initiated by a group called Aramaic Bible Translation, which is loosely connected with my memory is not always working like it should. I'll think about it later.
So this is a different group. Is this group still existent, or did they end up?
Well, Aramaic Bible Translation, yes. But it's people who are trained in translation techniques, and then they have reached out to find Aramaic speakers. So in some different dialects. So Assyrian,
right,
for example. And then, of course, Chaldean, and so they've linked up with church entities to help find people who are gifted in translation, and whether they've already had translation skills or they needed help developing those. So, our translator, Salamatisha, he was given a book to read and some guidance, and so he learned some translation principles, which wasn't too hard for him because he already he had classical Arabic training anyways in Iraq, and he worked with a newspaper as an editor. So he kind of understands the translation world anyways.
Mm-hmm. That is so fascinating. So are you gonna make the translations available for each book that you complete, or will it have to wait until the Old Testament is completed and kind of provide, make it available that way?
Well, we've entertained the ideas of having some of those books that we did earlier on available as a little group. But, and then beyond that, it's always a matter of what are the needs of the community. What would they like? What benefits them the most? Do they want to wait? As it is, it probably would be good to get a few books printed, because we have one translator, and we should have more than that. We've had difficulty finding people who either have the ability, the knowledge of Chaldean, of Surat. If they're younger and have been in the United States, chances are, do they know enough? And if they're older, are they young enough? If I might put it that way. So it's hard to find. And do they have commitments in life where they can't help us? They have to be sort of free enough to be able to work with a translation project.
Well, you know, based on what has happened to the community over the years, and we have talked to a lot of translators and people who are trying to preserve and document the Aramaic language. It just seems like sometimes it's very inspiring for people that if they see the work earlier on, it kind of inspires them that they maintain the connection with the language, and maybe there are some people that would come forth to participate. I mean, my view would be, it seems it would be interesting that it would be made available, even if it's shorter rather than the wait. Because one of the things that the Chaldean Cultural Center is doing, for instance, we're trying through our different programming to inspire people, especially the youth or people that do know Aramaic, to continue, you know, to use it, as well as to like read and learn how to read and write it. So it would be interesting to see what would come out. Us wait, because the community is kind of so dispersed too, and now that we have the majority, the largest population of Chaldeans are now in Michigan. We used to be the second largest, but then after all the things that have happened, and so we are trying to utilize that. It makes that community stronger, so there's possibility to see people who would come forward, and perhaps, like myself, despite my interaction with the community, I was not aware of you guys' presence. And there are a lot of people that do speak Aramaic and are trying to do more work, and they might be able to participate more if they know about it or were inspired by what was printed already.
Yeah, and there is an online version of the New Testament that's available online in PDF form, and you can also order it. Okay. And I will provide that. I will email that to you.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I mean, it's really exciting just seeing the title. You know, the person who introduced me, his name is Stephen Coates, and he's a filmmaker, and he's also an interpreter. And he said, you know, have you ever heard of this organization or this project? And I was very impressed by what you guys have done. And you know, on a personal note, for you growing up in Michigan, did you know anything about Chaldeans? You know, how was the community first introduced to you?
I did not know they existed.
No.
Not until I was in communication with Lutheran Bible Translators to work with a project, and they it was already going on when I was retiring from the Air Force. It was a perfect. After accepting a call as a pastor in Minnesota, I've never served as a pastor in Michigan, but even though I grew up there, so I was in Minnesota, and I served as with a congregation for about 3 years there, and then right away I started training with Lutheran Bible Translators by going to different. A condensed version of schooling, since I already had certain education behind me. So I spent two academic quarters, 2 or 3, up in North Dakota. So that, and learning the translation techniques. And there are schools that are affiliated with Wycliffe, which is the organization that for whatever reason I couldn't think of before. So Wycliffe was a school that helped train me, and even Lutheran Bible Translators years ago came from that organization. So it became a separate entity, although people who are Lutheran worked in Lit, and some still do, worked in Wycliffe, but we formed our own organization. So when I was in Minnesota, I was actually able to go from where I lived in Moorhead across the Red River to West Fargo, and there were some refugees there that the government had settled there who are from Iraq. And I met a family, and they were able to, I was able to give them a list of words, and they were able to tell me what the Chaldean words for those English words, to give me a little head start in the vocabulary, the overall vocabulary of Chaldean. So,
well, this is, and I was going to ask you regarding, you know, that you enlisted in the Air Force and served as an Arabic and Hebrew translator for 20 years, which is quite a while. And, you know, what countries did you serve in, and what was that experience like?
Well, I was in Greece, in both Athens and Crete, all together for 6 years. That was a good experience. If nothing else, I was determined not just to go to work and come home and, you might say, hang out with my American friends. I would find numerous Greek people to be with. I took Greek courses at you might say an extension of an American college. And I was able, and I had Greek before, classical Greek and New Testament Greek, so that kind of helped me. So my point is, I was able to get a good feel for modern Greek, and that just, when you do that, when you start out learning some languages and you just add on languages, it just helps. It just, in college, I had courses in Latin and German, as well as the Hebrew and modern Greek and classical, not modern Greek, but classical Greek and New Testament Greek and classical Hebrew. So when I went to Greece, it was my first opportunity to actually live in a culture that wasn't American culture. And I think that was helpful to experience a culture for 6 years, as well as picking up more skills in learning a language. So that when I lashed on to this translation project, I was able to find people to help me transition, to use the Hebrew skills and Arabic skills to learn some surah.
And well, you live in Texas now, right? You said, so you served as pastor in different states, but you said not Michigan, just Minnesota, and now you're in Texas.
Yes.
So I'm assuming, I don't know if there is a large Arab, or is there even a Chaldean or a Syrian community in Texas? And how has, what are the communities like outside of Michigan? You know, Michigan now, most people do know about the Chaldeans. I know not that long ago, actually, they did not. Especially like prior to 2014, they really were not as familiar with the Chaldean or Assyrian community. Now they are. How about the other states?
It's the same way. People don't know. They probably confuse them as Arabic people. Mm-hmm. And you have to tell them, well, no. If they hear them on TV, to them it sounds like it's Arabic.
Right.
You know, if they happen to hear them, and chances are that's not going to happen very much anyways. Probably for, I'm going to say, political reasons. But here in East Texas, I was actually able to, I was interviewed for a local paper and also a local television station where I was able to talk about this project and the Chaldean community, not just their need for the translation, but in the present day with all of what's going on in Iraq, how important it is for them to have the word.
Yeah, and we really appreciate that. It is, it's through education and information and awareness. How else is anybody going to learn about these things if we don't share these stories of what we know? And sometimes because we're not able to be in other states, and this is where we're based, Michigan mostly, although there's others, there's in Chicago, a large Syrian community, but there are many states, and the United States is fairly big. And I think from my experience, that when we share these stories, I do feel that there's a lot of respect and interest in these stories, and getting to know who the people are, who the indigenous people of Iraq are. So what has been the most rewarding aspect of being part of this translation program, and not just necessarily for the Chaldean, but just being part of this project? What has that been for you?
Getting my hands in Aramaic, because I learned a little bit of biblical Aramaic, but it's been very worthwhile learning some of the grammar and the new vocabulary. Just getting to understand, and the fact that I do know some Arabic, I was able to help a translator when he would forget a word and he would say it in Arabic, or he wanted to know what the English word was. Okay, I just happen to know that one, so that's been helpful. Also, being able to go through, in addition, because as an advisor, I'm the main responsibility I have is to make sure the project keeps on going. And so I'm really glad we have this interview to make it more known, and that we can get more people to help out. Not just translators, but we need people to look at what we've finished and say, yes, this makes sense. This is how we put these words. This is how we use these words. And even getting a cross section, young people, older people, that's always helpful. And I lost my train of thought. That was a detour, and I went with a detour, and I lost my train of thought, which is okay, I guess.
You say that there is, because my next question was, what has been the most challenging aspect of the program? Would you say that's one of the challenging, is maybe the outreach and getting people familiar with that?
Familiar with it, and finding, and because of that, finding people who are qualified to and willing and are able to help out. Funding is a big issue. I knew one person who knew poetry very well, and she would have been a great asset, but she would have had to been reimbursed a little bit more than what we had at that moment. So funding can be a big issue to help people. Because they need to work for a living. So I'm reimbursed, but not there. I come from a different system, and so the translators are reimbursed through different means that I'm reimbursed for, and that can be a challenge. It's a big challenge. That's one of the biggest challenges, and it may also be that the perception of how much of a translation, how many, what is translated has been debated. I think some of the clergy are happy with what is read on Sunday mornings, which is just a cross section, right? We have a similar system with Lutherans, where we don't pick our own verses to read. There's a set system that we read. We have 3 cycles. We we go through. And I don't know if it was one side, if it's a similar cycle. So are clergy happy with that? And they will simply use the Peshitta for their studies, and are they thinking that the people don't need the entire Bible, because as long as they go to worship and hear the words proclaimed, excuse me, that's the pharmacy.
That's important.
Yeah. I don't know that if that's an issue or not, but it's come into discussion. So the church we need to make sure that what does the church need? What does the church want? Is it mainly for the priest and elders to read on Sunday and to do the chanting, the psalms? How many people want the Bible in their Aramaic language now, or are people learning English enough? That's good enough for them. What is the need? It's not for us as an outside source to tell the church what it needs, because that's not how it works. It doesn't work very well, that we know better attitude. So we have to know what does the Chaldean church need and want. And that's it might be a constant communication process.
Yes. And so that leads us to the last question is, I guess, and I know that you said that it's up to, the community and the church, but what advice would you give Chaldeans who are trying to document and preserve the Aramaic language in the United States, where really this is where we would be able to do so given the resources available to us?
I'm sorry, my phone is talking to me and is distracting me.
Oh, that's okay. No, I was just saying, last words, any advice that you would give the community who are interested in preserving and documenting the Aramaic language here in the United States?
Well, of course, I understand it's a spoken language. So do they know how to read? Can they communicate with, can they call the CCC and say, do you have programs to help us to read? University, is that existent anywhere? I know there was an Assyrian effort, more Assyrian dialect, and I was actually going that route for a bit, but there didn't seem to be a Chaldean effort to teach, online effort rather. And I'm sure there is a school in Detroit to help people, or maybe a couple schools.
Yeah, I think the University of Detroit has some classes they had in the past, and there's a Father Bazi who's in California who teaches quite a bit in a college. And so, but it would be great. Like we can connect people. This is what the whole purpose of our interaction. So it's just about connecting different people who are interested in the same thing.
I would stress that you understand scripture in the language you grew up with, what you speak at home. Mm-hmm. That's the language that you will understand scripture best. So even if, and it depends on the age, of course, of Chaldeans in the US. Younger people, they can understand English as well as they can Chaldean, but the older Chaldeans, they'll understand much better. But then again, do they ever learn Chaldean either in the Syriac script or the Arabic script? Because and by the way, it's available in both online, the Syriac script. But I'm imagining that's more something that the clergy will identify with than lay people who are probably more likely to know Arabic script if they lived in Iraq. So
Well, please make sure that you send me the links, and I will share them with the recording. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for working on this project. It's very meaningful for us, and you know, we'll connect soon about this. We'll keep following you to see where this project goes and if we could be of any assistance.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed this time.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
And you too. Bye-bye. Shame.
Islam.